This is my own personal thesis on the hyperscalers and the data centers from my own research. I do believe the data center build out, these will be some of the highest return on investment assets, probably maybe since the railroads. Is it a stretch? Maybe human history. It may be a stretch, but I think I've got the information to back it up. This is so important because it really affects every investor. No matter what you're invested in, I don't care if you're invested in an all-world fund. Majority of the movement is coming from the hyperscalers because the market is surging right now so much because of the industrial boom. Hyperscaler capex. This is what is pushing the stock market up so aggressively because the money isn't just printed money from the Federal Reserve. This is money coming from the hyperscalers going into the market, going into companies and pushing up. So it's so important to understand the hyperscaler build out and why I'm very confident on the data center build out. Now, Wall Street are basically taking the capex that is getting spent and saying that it's all just burning money. And I think they've got it wrong. I think they've massively got it wrong because there's absolutely an ROI. For a start, we have to consider the backlog just for cloud is 1.2 trillion just across Azure, Google and Amazon. So straight away, if we were just using it for cloud infrastructure, there's money already there, but there's just no capacity. So they need to build these data centers as fast as possible. Now, what Wall Street are missing regarding the data center, it's costing the hyperscalers maybe like $44 billion to build these, and they're just assuming this is all depreciating assets that they're buying. This is where the mistake is getting made. They're assuming they're spending $44 billion on NVIDIA GPUs. They're fundamentally not realizing what the hyperscalers have acquired is the equivalent of buying property in Manhattan in like the 18th century. It's like 1890 and you're buying Manhattan block of property and skyscrapers or whatever, or land. That is what the equivalent is of these data centers. To get a data center to work, it's like a 4-leaf clover. It needs to be perfect. They need to be like 1 mile away, 2 miles away from like a gas line. They need dense fiber optic cables and they need water to be close as well. They need water rights. And before people even knew what ChatGPT was, the hyperscalers were buying up land before anyone even could blink. It's a real estate war. Because if you've not got the power and you've not got the land and the location, you can't build the data center. And they've just choked up all the supply. So even if you want to build, the generators, the substations, GE, Vernova are the suppliers, the manufacturers, they're just booked, fully booked. So the hyperscalers, no one can compete against what the hyperscalers are actually buying up and building. If you just wanted to try and compete against them tomorrow, who has like the money that they have to do this? No one. So they've built a moat so strong and so secure that it ties into their own business models that I believe the actual data centers will pay for themselves with a lot faster than what Wall Street think. Because if you were to say, the truth is, they buy these blocks of land. On their balance sheet, it doesn't show on the balance sheet as an appreciating asset. In reality, the economic truth is it's absolutely an appreciating asset. Right now, the queue for power is ridiculous in America. Currently, the entire US grid is 1,374 gigawatts. The active queue is 2,000 gigawatts. So you would have to just double the USA to meet the demand. So someone that decides, why don't I just buy some land and get some power from the grid? They can't get it. They could be waiting for 5 to 7 years. But guess who has the power? Who's sitting on the power? The hyperscalers. So you need to factor that in. They own assets that are no one else can get. They've choked up all the supply. So that's one aspect. If AI didn't exist, I would calculate, if they just rented the power, used cloud, the actual data center could pay back itself in 2.6 years, a 20% return on invested capital. That is phenomenal in finance. It's phenomenal. If you can actually repay your asset back that fast, that's incredible. Now, the big question that no one will say to you across any of the major institutions right now, no one is saying what is the ROI per gigawatt. This is what I'm trying to find, and no one is really bold enough really to claim it and say what the actual ROI per gigawatt is. And in this video, I'm going to throw my own thesis, my own calculation as to why I think a gigawatt will generate maybe 50 to 60 billion. I know that says 126 billion. That's very bullish, very bullish. But I believe the ROI is specifically going to be huge for hyperscalers. Now, I'll tell you why. What do we actually know right now about AI? Humanoid robots. We do not know for an absolute fact yet that these robots could drive a truck, deliver parcels, dig a trench with a shovel. We don't know it can do that. It probably can't do that. It can't do that now. We don't know if it'll do it. It's all speculation. However, what do we know for an absolute fact? We know what AI can do right now. It can communicate. And we also now know it can sell. Because Meta and Google stand right now with the most potential with what AI can do. Communication, strong communication is really just a good salesperson. And Meta released a WhatsApp beta. Now, WhatsApp, in the USA, people don't really use WhatsApp. The rest of the world use WhatsApp. And there was a rollout of how much can AI actually sell versus a human. And the results were unbelievable. They were converting at 25% conversion flow. That is ridiculous. That is unheard of. The speed that the AI was communicating, under 60 seconds, they were qualifying leads faster, they were converting leads faster because of the speed and the communication. And it was 24/7. These AI sales agents are huge potential. They're tapping into a market that Google and Meta are really positioned to take up, because they already have customer data, they already have customer profiles, they're already an advertising industry. Now they're tapping into the labour industry and the sales industry. And the math is justified because of this WhatsApp rollout. This is real raw evidence. This is already happening. The WhatsApp sales agents. This was the test, but an AI can speak across Instagram, it can speak across Google, anything, and it will sell better than humans. Therefore, you're going to have advertisers and businesses using these sales agents over humans without question, maybe over the next 5 years. And the math per GPU, so this is what I'm saying. So what we actually have to calculate to make it to find out this whole ROI on the AI is really just ROI per gigawatt. Now, this isn't just me making this up, because who agrees with me straight away? The hyperscalers agree with me, otherwise they wouldn't be spending all this money. So the hyperscalers agree, and private equity do agree. They won't say an ROI per gigawatt, but we don't need them to say that. We just need to follow what they're spending their money on. So the biggest private equity firms on earth are backing all these data centers, because they've obviously arrived at something, maybe a conclusion similar to what I'm seeing. Brookfield, Blackstone, KKR, obviously BlackRock, they are throwing in investments to these data centers like anything. They're really helping. I mean, Blue Owl funded Meta's data center through a special purpose vehicle. Why would they? They're not going to lend on hope. They obviously ran models. The global market spends $2.1 trillion annually on human sales and customer support payroll. Businesses process 18 billion messaging interactions per day on WhatsApp alone. So if we capture 1 billion AI-driven conversations per day, 30 cents per interaction creates 100 billion in annual revenue, high-margin revenue stream. Now, that's assuming the entire data center is used for that 24/7, which is obviously unrealistic. But even if we're conservative, I put on 5 gigawatts. 5 gigawatts could generate 250 billion a year, and it's high margin. It's high margin. What I'm saying is, look, we're now at a point where it's the cost of compute is getting cheaper. Monetization per conversion. So it would cost Meta like 30 cents. Revenue per GPU per hour. Even if that was $15 an hour, the math is ridiculous, because what's happening is the customer value is replacing like 15 humans, and they're generating higher conversion. See, Wall Street are not factoring this in because they can't. How can they can't? See, Wall Street need to wait until it's an actual line item on the profit and loss. They're not allowed to speculate whatsoever. Obviously, as investors, this is the whole point. Yeah, we need to look at it and see what is the ROI. I see a huge ROI over the next 5 years. Private equity must see it because they're putting their money into it. And we've already got raw, hard evidence of conversational AI ads. Look at Google as well. What's going to end up happening is this. Yeah, if I'm saying, look, I'm looking for this item. This could happen to all. Think of e-commerce businesses and stores. If I'm saying, look, I want to find this item. This is what I'm looking for. Advertisers will fight to be part of the conversion of this. Okay? It will be tailored and fast, and it can be way more specific. Probably way better than a human could sell you. Way better than a human could. Far superior. And it's already proven that. So we need to what I'm saying is we factor in the ROI of the actual data centers without AI. And then we've got to factor in, advertisement, which doesn't even include cloud. See, the only the hyperscalers have this potential. I mean, if someone did magically get $100 billion tomorrow, like the private equity funds, and built their own data centers, they just have to sort of rent them out. But the hyperscalers are perfectly positioned to convert the GPUs into their own sales. Well, Meta is already doing it. Meta just uses the GPUs themselves to run better advertisement. Far superior. When you're on Instagram, it's showing you advertisements that you actually would care about, that you actually want to see. But the next stage of the sales process will then be converting the sale, which is what these AI sales agents, I believe, are going to do. But even if you just said AI doesn't exist, do the data centers make any money? Do they have an ROI? Absolutely. They absolutely do. Because the sheer value, for someone to replicate these data centers in like the next 5-10 years, it's just going to be impossible. How do you penetrate this moat? You can't. That's why I believe it's like they have purchased Manhattan in the 1800s without question. Yeah. So I'm going to put my full write-up on this in detail. I'll put it on my newsletter on here. I'll put that in the description, so you can actually read up on what I'm getting at and why how I can back up the actual math of this, so that it's not just speculation. And this is only one avenue of potential that they can use. This isn't even factoring in potentially Microsoft has the ability to replace administration workers, labor replacement. The ROI for businesses is incredible, and the moat has just been solidified, because I don't see anyone penetrating this. So I'll put my full write-up on there very soon. But that's why they're violently undervalued, without question, and they're insulated from the AI bubble, because they're the cause of the AI bubble. I don't believe it's a bubble, but some stocks might be, like memory chips and things are in a cycle. But as far as any AI bubble, is dictated by the hyperscalers. It's their spending, their money that is funding it. So if you actually are owning hyperscalers, you're insulated from that. And right now, a few of them, Meta is the cheapest at the moment of making this video. Microsoft, Amazon, I'm obviously on the fence with Amazon because I think they're trying to do the humanoid robots and the data centers. They're fighting a war on two fronts. So I'm not so bullish on Amazon, but Google, Microsoft, Meta, attractive valuations, mostly on Meta, Google, Microsoft. And this is it. Well, everyone, the market's chasing the semiconductors and the arms dealers. There opens up opportunity for hyperscalers.